Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Patrick, and this is the story of how my marriage fell apart. Not overnight, not because of one big explosive fight, but because of little cracks that grew wider and wider until foundation gave way. When my wife's friends told her to pack her bags and leave me for a week, just to teach me a lesson, I responded in the one way she least expected. She thought I'd chase after her, beg her to come back, and plead for her love. But instead, I chose a path that surprised her, and honestly, even surprised me. I had warned her about those friends for months, maybe even years. I told her that the advice they gave was never rooted in kindness, love, or growth. It always seemed destructive, designed to stir conflict rather than bring peace. But Maria, my wife, didn't listen. She saw them as supportive, as her sisters, as her sounding board. And so, when they whispered in her ear and told her that the way to make me value her was to leave the house and give me a taste of emptiness, she believed them. She thought leaving would scare me into crawling back, into surrendering to whatever version of marriage they thought she deserved. But she didn't realize I had been watching her slowly change under their influence for a long time, and I had reached a point where I was no longer willing to fight for someone who refused to fight for me. Looking back, the irony is that the beginning of our story was so peaceful, so full of promise, so far from the chaos it eventually became. Maria and I had been married for 7 years, but our journey began long before vows, rings, and shared bills. We dated for 3 years before the wedding. For most of that time, we were in a long-distance relationship. She lived in one city, I lived in another, and we made it work with weekend visits, phone calls that lasted late into the night, and constant messages throughout the day. People often say long-distance relationships either strengthen a couple or tear them apart. In our case, I thought it strengthened us. We didn't fight much. We were too busy looking forward to the next time we'd see each other. That distance, instead of driving a wedge between us, actually made every reunion feel special. I thought if we could survive that, then surely we could survive anything. But what I didn't realize then was that surviving distance is one thing. Surviving the daily grind of sharing the same space, day in and day out, is something else entirely. After our wedding, everything shifted. It was the first time we truly lived together, sharing not just a bed, but a bathroom, a kitchen, an entire rhythm of life. I had been on my own for years before that. I had my habits, my routines, my way of arranging things. Suddenly, every choice had to be made with someone else in mind. It wasn't bad. It was just an adjustment. Having someone always there, always part of your day, takes a mental shift. And I tried my best to welcome it. I loved her, and I believed she loved me. Our mutual affection was real, and it gave me hope that the adjustments would be worth it. Maria had left her city to come live with me. That meant starting over in many ways. Finding new work, building a new circle, carving out a space for herself in an unfamiliar place. I supported her through that. In the evenings, we'd sit side by side on the couch with our laptops, looking at job postings. I'd send her links. She'd send applications. After a few weeks, she got hired as a customer service representative at a bank. She was thrilled. I was proud of her. And soon enough, she settled into the job. Naturally, she made friends with co-workers, the kind of people you grab lunch with or vent to about a rough day. I wanted that for her. I didn't want her whole identity to revolve around me or our marriage. I wanted her to have her own world too. Back then, our relationship felt like a partnership. We supported each other's dreams. We encouraged each other's goals. When we got married, we both agreed not to rush into parenthood. It wasn't even a debate. We both wanted to focus on our careers and enjoy our freedom before bringing kids into the picture. We promised ourselves a few years first, some money saved, some growth achieved, and then we'd think about children. And it worked for a while. Maria thrived in her job. She was good at what she did, so good that within a few years she was promoted to lead the entire customer care unit at her branch. It was a huge accomplishment, and I wanted to celebrate her. I made a reservation at her favorite restaurant that night. Over a candlelit dinner, between the main course and dessert, I felt the time was right to bring up the idea of having a child. I think we're in a good place now. I told her, maybe it's time we started talking about starting a family. She smiled politely. Then she quickly changed the subject, saying we should just focus on her promotion that night. I didn't press the issue. It was her evening, and I wanted her to enjoy it. But I assumed it was just a temporary deflection. I was wrong. Every time I brought it up after that, whether casually during a walk or while planning for the year ahead, she shut it down, always with the same words. Now's not the time. At first, I thought it was work stress. But as the months passed, her tone sharpened. It wasn't postponement anymore. It was resistance. That was the first crack in our foundation. Then came the day that changed everything. One Tuesday, I came home from work earlier than usual. I didn't tell Maria. I walked in to find her sitting in the living room with two friends. One I had seen before, the other was new. They were laughing, drinking, having a lively conversation. I greeted them politely and went to the bedroom, not intending to listen in. But the walls in our home aren't thick, and they weren't exactly whispering. What I overheard chilled me. One of them bragged about how she finally blocked her second ex-husband. She kept repeating that marriage was a scam, and she was glad to be free. The other confessed she was still seeing a married man, and laughed about how his wife knew but couldn't do anything about it. She even called it a sign from the universe, that she was meant to have him. I sat in disbelief. These were the women Maria was surrounding herself with. This wasn't harmless chatter. It wasn't venting. It was poison. When they left, I waited a bit before calmly telling Maria how uncomfortable I was with what I'd heard. I explained that surrounding herself with women who glorified failed marriages or celebrated affairs wasn't healthy, for her or for us. Instead of listening, she snapped. She accused me of spying, of lacking boundaries, of judging her friends unfairly. She refused to hear me. That was when I realized just how deeply they were influencing her. From that point on, things spiraled. Each time Maria came back from spending time with them, she seemed different, colder, harsher, suspicious. She started accusing me of things I had never done, criticizing me for not being a real man, parroting phrases I was sure weren't her own. It was like she was carrying their bitterness back into our home. One night, she came home late, reeking of alcohol. That wasn't her. She was never the party type. When I asked gently if she was okay, she exploded, accusing me of trying to cage her, of being threatened by her independence. Then she said words that cut me to the core, that I wanted to ruin her body by pushing for a child, that I was trying to trap her in motherhood while I stayed free. I was stunned. After that, things went silent. We lived like strangers, barely speaking, barely acknowledging each other. The warmth was gone. Then one morning before sunrise, I caught her packing a bag. She told me she was going to stay with a friend, that we needed time apart. She insisted it was just a week. I tried reasoning, even offered therapy. She refused. She walked out without looking back. That was the moment I knew. If she could leave so easily, if she could give up without fighting, then maybe I was the only one still holding on. So I did the one thing she never expected. I filed for divorce. When the papers reached her, she messaged me saying I was bluffing, that this was just manipulation. But I wasn't bluffing. A few days later, she showed up panicked, begging me to withdraw the papers. She admitted her friends had told her to leave, that they promised I'd come crawling back. I laughed bitterly. Now you're free, I told her. Go be with your friends. Maybe they'll help you through the divorce too. She broke down, insisting she didn't want to end up like them, bitter, divorced, alone. But I had already shut down. If she could walk out once, she could do it again. The divorce took time, but eventually it was finalized. She begged throughout, but I stood firm. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. Loving someone doesn't mean tolerating disrespect, especially when they don't see it as disrespect. Now it's over. Our marriage is done. I didn't want this ending, but sometimes relief is better than sadness. And if you're listening to this, let me tell you, you're not crazy for wanting respect, loyalty, and commitment. Marriage is between two people, not between you and your spouse's toxic friends. If someone chooses outsiders over you, believe them and protect your peace.